Hi, this is Colette from Soul Life Loving. I'm going to fidget for a bit because I've just come in, I've lit the burner, I'm in my studio, and I have to fidget before I settle. You know, like one of those, like a dog that goes round, and it settles and it gets up and it goes round, and it settles and then it kind of shuffles its little self about, or mine does, and then it finds the spot and it stops fidgeting. It's not going to stop my hands moving. Right, so from the past videos, which took me up to like being 5, the point of me telling you about those was because lately when you learn what it all means, and you don't get the whole thing, you learn in stages as you're meant to, but oh gosh, here we go. When I was 3 and I decided that I was going to stay with my mother, my parents and my brother until I was 15, and then I was going to leave, as I learned in the future, that was setting an intention. On the fact that I could set an intention at 3 for myself, and I actively worked and ticked it off every year towards it. Sometimes I got overwhelmed at how long it would be before I could escape properly, because I knew I needed to work. So if I worked, then I would be acceptable and I would have money and I could have my own place. And so I didn't realise how unusual it was for a 3-year-old to tell another adult, you know, this is what I'm doing. I don't like it. And I just cut them out. I cut them out of my life. I turned up for meals and then I went off again. And then I would turn up for another meal and I would go off again. My mum and dad and my brother were all overweight, but I was like a stick. I was just burning energy because I was constantly on the go, because you couldn't settle. I couldn't settle anywhere. And it's only as I've learned about my past timelines have I realised the kind of life that I had, where you weren't allowed to, you know, stopping and settling during the day when you should have been working meant you got a beating. What I learned this year, is it this year? Gosh, the last 2 years have been, because I've got to the point where I have enough knowledge, and I've always struggled with meditation, but I found that guided meditation, even though I go off piste in it, because I've got my own guides, so I go with them, but getting to them in a state, and that little quiet little voice. I follow a woman called Pure Raza, and she just keeps me where I wander on track and on track and on track, so that I can complete tasks with knowing. What I learnt from all of this was that it's not just about breaking the curses, it's not just about breaking those karmic things, it's about A, not dying with it, but B, keeping my compassion and humanity, keeping my going for and following as determinedly as I could this path to make me my best self. Now, I didn't know I was doing that. It was just something in me that I had to keep trying, that I had to keep beating these things. And I was born to do that. And that's why the mission was vitally important. That's why I had to stay on track, was because I had to keep going. So on one of the when I was tracking down a past life, and I was in this meditation, and I went into this forest, and as I was walking in there, and just all of a sudden this little girl popped up. Oh, and she had curly red hair, like my kind of curly, because my hair was auburn, so it looked brown until he stood me in a shaft of sunlight, and then it was orange. And I saw her, she had orange hair, and it was tied back with string, like a string thing, and she had a little bonnet hat on, and sort of a full skirted frock kind of thing, and a bodice that was laced with the same twiny thing that was in her hair. And she had a yoke and 2 wooden buckets dangling on it, and on her feet she had like thin leather, and it was tied round her ankles in the same twine. I don't know what it was. I was so shocked to suddenly have her pop up in front of me, and I saw the shock on her face. She was like, and I went, and at that point the meditation was starting to end, and I was being pulled back into myself, and I was like, what was that? Oh, and I knew I've got to go back there tomorrow, and I've got to get her. And so tomorrow I went back, and I followed the same path, same meditation, same path, got there, and as soon as we clocked eyes, she just went poof into all this sort of like magic fairy rainbow dust, kind of a poof, and she just went whoosh, in me. And I said to her, oh, and she was so relieved. I could feel this absolute relief of that we'd found one another. She would say, oh, she's been waiting there hundreds and hundreds of years with her clothing, a long time, and she wasn't the original, but she was the youngest that had died. And her job was to run from the river to the big house. When I say big house, it was where everybody congregated to eat, where the hunters congregated to eat. And my job was to run water to the kitchens for the pitchers. And I had to do that all day, and I was just a little girl. And because I was a serf, you could grab a mouthful of water from the river. You couldn't drink in the hall. And you were fed because they would eat whatever they were eating. And then they would just chuck it on the floor, what was left. And you'd have to fight for it to get it. So I can understand now why I was so ferocious. Why I've got a food issue. I really do have food issues. Like starvation issues. Like if you give me a bowl, I will ram it in as fast as possible and then flee. Just in case. Somebody might have punched me in the gut, made me vomit and ate it, and I wouldn't have had anything then. So it was vitally important that he pegged it. So anything that landed, you know. And I bit people to get at a bone with a bit of meat on and everything. And there wasn't a right lot of veg. So consequently, my bones weren't very strong. Don't know what my eyesight was like then. It didn't impinge. I do have a knee issue. I have a knee issue that's been passed on to all my children, which is funny. Not funny, weird funny. But at the time, I didn't have, because I could see myself running and I was straight-legged, and I thought, oh. But then I got weak, my bones got brittle, and I was worn out, absolutely worn out. And I think it was about 8, something like that, and 9. People were shorter then, so I can't remember. But somebody kicked her in the knee, and it broke her knee. And I was just dragged out into the forest. And covered with leaves and left to die. And there I'd been waiting for me to turn up, something to happen. That's where I found her, with this York. Now I know she wouldn't have died with that, because Yorks and buckets then, I mean, and they were leaky buckets. This is why, and you had to run, but not run too much that you didn't splash. But the buckets were a bit leaky because they were just held with this really strong twine. And the guide that I came with, the guide that I've always called guide, always, that guided me, when that happened, I got this knowing, and I knew he was her dad. And I don't know whether it was him that kicked her or whether it was somebody else that kicked her, but he lost his child that day for no reason. And he was my guide, and I didn't think anything sort of about this for a few days. But then it suddenly occurred to me that I've always called my guide. Like, I've never even said to him, what's your name? Just never even occurred to me, because he was guide. And he was being a bit distant with me, and I couldn't work out what was going on. And I thought maybe it's because I've never asked him his name, because, you know, how rude is that? Here you are, guiding me, protecting me, and giving me answers to things, and I haven't even asked what your name is. So I said to him, what's your name? And he said, and this voice said, Jamil. And I said, well, you don't look like a Jamil. You sure? I can't be in here. No, that kid was not a Jamil. She had red hair and white skin. She can't be a Jamil. It didn't occur to me after that I have a tendency to argue with facts. I thought, God, tell your God he's not called what he's called. But I thought, this is really weird. This is really weird. I said to him, I'm really sorry, but I can't. I'm going to call you guide. I'm sorry. I can't call you Jamil. You don't look like a Jamil. And she definitely wasn't a Jamil. And a Jamil clan. So I'm going to call you guide. And then as the days went past along, and I carried on meditating every day, I was in a prayer, it's like a golden, like they create a golden bubble around me of protection. So what I've learned is there's a lesson coming. And there was other people around me, and I didn't realise that I have my own group of personal spirits. They have their own group of spirits. They have their own group of spirits. But I was surrounded in this learning bubble. And this shimmering thing appeared, which I now know is a portal. And I thought, oh. And then I looked, because my immediate reaction was, guide, what is going on here? There's something weird going on here. I can feel it. And I looked at my guide, and he was almost transparent, and he wasn't moving. And I noticed he was being a bit standoffish with me over the last few days since I rescued this little girl. And I thought, well, he's probably really pissed off with me because I just told him, no, I'm not calling you by your name. I'm going to call you guide. How rude am I? But he suddenly started to fade. And the voice that had spoken to me and said, Jamil, it suddenly dawned on me that it wasn't the same voice, and that he was the father of the little girl that I went and rescued. And that was his job done. Now, I didn't know things like this happened. That was his job done, and he was going. And this man that had been with me for 65 years and beyond was slowly fading. And it broke my heart. And I could hear I could hear Jamil saying to me, this was meant to happen. If you hadn't saved her, you would have had to have come back again to do this, because you're here to clear this timeline, and it goes back a long, long way, and there are a lot of blockages and a lot of deaths, and we're going to walk you through this. But now this section is done, and we're going to get you through the portal and beyond. So this floating golden plinth appeared from nowhere. Lie down there, and we're going to look after you. We're going to heal this, and we're going to look after you. And then he said, come and have a walk in the forest with me. Come and walk with us. Let's go through the portal, and it'll be all right. So I trust my guide. This is my new guide. I've got over the sobbing of the loss of that guide, and I've accepted Jamil. So we go through the portal. And what happens is I get up and I rise out of my body. And my body stays there. And he says, that has to be left there now, because that's done. That's the old you. We're going to take you through here. And will be a new you. And it's like, it's a new mission. Fine. So we go through the portal. Go through this portal, and there's all these spirits all clapping and cheering. And I'm like, oh, shoot. And he said, these are for you, because you're the first one you came on this mission, and you're doing it. You've got enough wisdom and you've got enough compassion to do this, and you're doing it. And that's why they're all cheering, because it's been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years and nobody's done it, and you're doing it. And you're in here now. And that's why they're all cheering, Colette. It's fine. At which point I locked round his arm like this, looking at everybody clapping at me, because I've never walked into a room where anybody has clapped me. Not one single person. Nobody has ever clapped me. So it's a bit like, okay, right, so we're going to put you in a bubble now. We're going to put you in this bubble. They brought in like a really beautiful spirit energy, and this voice says, I'm coming to heal you. We're going to heal that bit where that happened, because now that's done. It's extra healing for you. Okay. And I would just and he said, we're going to teach you how to do things from now on. And this green bubble came around me. And all that worry just went. And I just thought, oh. And then Jamil said, yeah, you can relax here. It's fine. We have totally protected you. We've protected you, your loved ones, your home, and everywhere you go. And the only time that anything penetrates is because a lesson has to be learned. So don't be panic stricken and overreact, because this is what the lessons are now. It's started. And I stayed there for, oh gosh, ages, right through that meditation. And I didn't realise I'd fallen into a really deep, deep sleep because I was knackered. And it was the start. And all that came about because of the lessons that I was learning right in those first 5 years. And on that note, I'm going to stop so I can catch myself up. Thank you.